Good morning. How are you? Lovely to see you in Spain. Wonderful. Good morning, Greg from Pretoria. Nice to see you here. Hi, Tom. Lovely to see you. Morning, Anne from Kempton Park. Just going to give people a few minutes to come on board. Now, I'm hearing that things are starting to pick up in South Africa. I know you're not all there, but I know some of you are, and that some of you are going back to work again. Is that the case? Are any of you actually back working in offices? Good morning, Gabrielle. Good morning, Russell. It's cold in Scotland, but I'm actually not far from London, Tom. And it was very cold yesterday, but it's a little bit warmer today. So I was born and bred in Glasgow, but I actually live about a 50-minute train ride from London. Although under normal circumstances, I spend a week a month in Glasgow working with clients up there. Hi, Monique. Nice to start seeing, hi Crystal, nice to start seeing some familiar names now that I've run several of these webinars. I'm beginning to recognize you as you come on board, so that feels really good. I'm just going to give it one more minute and then at 10 o'clock we will kick off. Hi, Lyndon. Okay, we've reached 10 o'clock, so let me just share my screen with you and then we can get started. So today we are going to be talking about the habits that hold you back at work. And I originally put this together for a women's networking group, and the research I did and some of the input I've put in here comes from a book called What Stops Women Rise, or How Women Rise, by a wonderful lady called Sally Helgeson and a chap called Marshall Goldsmith. You might have heard of them. And they've outlined 12 of the most common habits that stop women progressing at work. However, a lot of these habits also apply to you guys. So I know we've got a very mixed audience today, and I really want to share some of these learnings with you and with you as guys as well as girls. So a couple of the stats I've got refer to women, but generally the habits and the tips I'm going to be sharing with you today apply to all of us. And you'll notice that you have some of these habits, perhaps not all of them. You might have overcome some of them, or you might be verging on them. And it's good to be aware of them, because awareness is half the battle in the way that we handle habits. So this is just a little bit of background on me. Many of you have seen this already. So what I'm actually going to do is just get on with the presentation. Now, I'm going to start with one statistic, which is that a survey by Bright Horizons on the Modern Family Index showed that 86% of women still handle all the primary family responsibilities. So therefore, they're not only responsible for their own home, but they're also looking after things like paying the bills, the food shopping, organising meals, taking kids to school, looking after elderly parents, organising birthdays, etc., etc., etc. And I know there'll be some men on here going, I do all that too, and I'm sure you do, but that's just the findings. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because of that, a lot of women tend to try and overcompensate at work because they're not able to get to work as early as men can, because they're juggling the school run with everything else that they have to do. And therefore, when they're at work, they feel that they have to be working twice as hard, that they have to stay late, that they have to take work home with them and overcompensate for the fact that they're juggling so much. But let's come back to habits. And I want to share this quote by the wonderful Aristotle, We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So what does that mean? Well, do you know, if you were on some of my previous webinars, you'll have heard me talk about flow and spending our time doing the work that we were put on this planet to do, and how about being in flow is a bit like going to the gym. The more we do it, the more strength we get in our area of expertise. And it's a bit like that with excellence. You know, the more we practice excellence, the more it becomes a habit. And I just wanted to say here that habits are hardwired in our brains. So they're not easy to get rid of just by willpower alone. And the best way to conquer a habit is to replace it with a new empowering habit. So today, as well as talking about some of the habits that hold us back and keep us playing small, I'm going to be sharing some top tips, things we can do right now to overcome some of these common habits. So here is that poor woman who's juggling the work, the team, her fitness, her diet, her kids, her mother, meetings, dinner, etc., etc. And as I said earlier, I'm sure some of you men also feel like that. And it is a juggling act, particularly when you've got a young family and you've also got elderly parents that need care and attention. It's called the sandwich generation, when you're stuck in the middle and not only trying to look after yourself and your job and your partner, but you've also got all the other responsibilities, and it can become really overwhelming. As I said, a lot of women will overcompensate for this by working long hours and not taking lunch breaks and not looking after themselves, and then can get rather overwhelmed with it all. So let's kick off with the first habit that I want to share with you today. And this is the one about deflecting compliments. And we are brought up, well, at least certainly I was brought up, and I know a lot of the people I know were brought up to be very modest, not to be proud, not to brag about our achievements. And I remember my dad saying to me on more than one occasion, "Don't get above your station, young lady." And it usually happened if I'd done really well at school. You know, I'd come top of the class in an exam or a test, or I'd got a gold star for some piece of work, and I was really proud of it. And I'd come home and I'd tell my mum, and then my dad would come home and I'd tell him. And if I mentioned it again that evening, that's when I'd get the frown and "Don't get above your station, young lady." You know, I'd mentioned it once to each of them, and that was enough. And so we're brought up to kind of underplay our achievements. It's a hard wiring from childhood. And then very often we feel uncomfortable when somebody compliments us. And it can be something as simple as, "Oh, love what you're wearing." And a classic thing that we, particularly us women, do is, "Oh gosh, this old thing, I've had it for ages," or "I got it in a charity shop." And we deflect that compliment. Similarly, when we get some appreciation or praise at work, very often we'll say, "Oh, well, it wasn't me, it was the team," or "Oh, it was Sally, she put on all the legwork," or "Actually, it was nothing." And so we're deflecting that compliment that the person is giving us. Now, there's a number of impacts that has. First of all, we're belittling what we've done, and we're making out that it wasn't much anyway. And the more we do that, the less respect we're going to have at work, and the less we're going to stand out for actually doing something good or going above and beyond the call of duty. And what happens over a period of time is that people will just forget about us because we keep deflecting anything that they praise us for. So we'll just become one of the crowd. We'll just blend in, and we won't be the first person they think of when they're thinking about who could we promote to the next level, who could help us, who could step up, who could run this team. They won't think of you because you keep deflecting what you do really well. So it's important to allow yourself to accept that compliment. Another thing that happens when somebody pays you a compliment, whether it's something personal or it's work, if we deflect it, it's like giving it back. It's like saying subconsciously, "I don't want to accept that compliment. So therefore, I'm going to minimize it. And you know, when we pay somebody a compliment or they pay us a compliment and we say something like, thank you, you've really made my day. What happens then is we have an exchange of the feel-good hormone, oxytocin. We feel good because we've accepted that compliment, and therefore we're saying, okay, I agree, I take that. It makes you feel good. But similarly, the person who's giving you that compliment also feels good. By deflecting it, you're closing down that exchange of that feel-good hormone, and the person goes away feeling quite flat. Chances of them paying you another compliment in the near future are quite slim. So how can you overcome this habit? Train yourself to say thank you and then just be quiet, unless it's something like, thank you, you've made my day. Not thank you, but it was nothing. Thank you, but I've had this for ages. Just thank you. Practice also giving compliments and encouraging other people to just say thank you when they deflect it, because we all do it. And the more, you know, they say we teach what we need to learn. So the more you give compliments and teach people to accept them, the higher the likelihood that you will learn to accept them. And the ongoing benefit of that in a work sense is that people will see you as a major contributor. Somebody that's done something well and accepts the praise for it, not in an arrogant way, but in a way you're recognizing your ability. Now, there is nothing wrong with saying, thank you, we've put a lot of time and effort into it. It was a joint effort. I also got a lot of help from the team around me, because you're accepting the compliment first, recognizing it took a lot of effort, and also complimenting the team at the same time. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next one. And this one is about multitasking, about grafting, about working really hard on the hope that just by working hard and doing extra work for other people and working long hours and missing lunch breaks, etc., that you are going to get noticed. And a lot of people fall into this habit. When they join a new company, they think, I'm just going to get my head down. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do everything I can to help everybody else. And if I do all that, then I'll get noticed. Unfortunately, very often the reverse happens, because we are so busy and we're juggling so many things in the air that people will often think, we can't ask him to do that. We can't ask her to do that because she's always so busy. She's always overwhelmed. She's always having to stay late. So there's no way we can ask her to take on extra responsibility. Now, there's a great story around this, and it's about a law firm. And the law firm were looking for a new partner. And they had two associate lawyers who they felt would meet the criteria they were looking for to be promoted to partner. And so the partners got together and had a meeting about it to discuss these two candidates. And the senior partner said, well, both these candidates have got all the criteria that we need. They're both well liked by their clients. They're bringing in a lot of business. They're very professional. That's why we're considering both of them. And then he said, however, I really think we should give this to John. There was one guy and there was one girl. He said, I really think we should give this to John. And the only female partner in the room piped up and said, well, what about Laura? Why should John have precedence over Laura? And the senior partner said, well, John has made it clear from day one that his aim with joining this company was to get to partner as soon as possible. And every time we've had a meeting about his performance or an appraisal review, he's made it very clear that he wants to make partner as soon as possible. I feel if we don't give him this promotion, we'll lose him and we'll lose all his skills to a rival firm. And I don't want to take that risk. Laura, on the other hand, has never made any indication that she wants to move up. She's never talked about partnership. She's never talked about career progression. So I'm assuming that she's really happy where she is. Now, in the end, John got the job. So what can we learn from that story? That grafting away, multitasking, working all the hours God sends, helping other people out is not the way you're going to get noticed. You're going to be seen as somebody that always says yes, that always does everything for everybody else. And that's not somebody who you would consider for a promotion because you feel that they're always just too stretched. So the important thing here, when you join a company, or if you're in a company right now, next time you get an opportunity, make your plans really clear. What is your vision for the future? Where do you want to go to? Do you want to be promoted? And stick with that vision and talk about it every time you're having an appraisal. Also ask, who do I need to model to be ready for that next position? What do I need to learn? Are there any accreditations I need to take on board to put me in a better position to get to that next stage? So act as if you're in waiting for that next position you want to get to. The next one is the disease to please, that need to be liked. And you know, it's one of our basic needs to feel that we're part of a tribe, and we all want to be liked. Of course we do. However, if you are part of a team or you're a manager of a team and wanting to be liked is your major priority, then it's going to impact on your leadership skills. And when we want to be liked, we tend to fall over backwards to please other people. We'll take on tasks that we know that they could do, but we don't want them to be overwhelmed. So we take them on ourselves, and we in turn get overwhelmed. And we can spend a lot of our time helping others, supporting others, listening to their problems, doing work for them. And at the end of the day, feeling really overwhelmed because we haven't taken nearly enough time for ourselves. So a way to deal with this is to analyze your working day at the end of each day and ask yourself, how much time did I spend helping others, pleasing others, sorting out their problems, doing work for them? And how much time today did I actually spend on my own role, on my own tasks, doing things for me and progressing my career? I'm not encouraging you to be selfish. I think we all need to support each other. But there's a very fine balance between supporting other people and doing everything you possibly can to please them and just being a yes person. Again, if you're being a yes person, it looks like you haven't got any direction of your own, that you haven't got any priorities that you need to work on. And therefore, it's going to undermine your position in terms of rising up through the ranks and being noticed as somebody who's a real change maker. And this quote says it all. Stress, anxiety, and depression are caused when we are living to please others. Now, as I said earlier, I'm all about supporting people and helping where we can. But if we're living our lives to please others, then we're not honoring our own needs. We're neglecting our own self-care, our own priorities, and therefore we're ultimately not going to have enough to give to others. So what comes next? This is the need to be an expert. And many of us, when we join a company or when we're promoted into a new role, feel we have to know everything there is to know about that company, that business, that new role. And we can spend hours, days, weeks and months learning to become an expert. And a story to illustrate this is about a woman who was promoted to lead a team in marine engineering. And she had good leadership skills, but she didn't know an awful lot about marine engineering. And so she decided that for the first 3 months in this role, what she was going to do was study and learn everything she possibly could about marine engineering, just really get her head down. And she also appreciated that some people in the team had reservations about her ability to lead them with her lack of experience in this field. So she wanted to overcome that. So she just got her head down and studied and studied and studied. Now, the team began to feel really disconnected. They weren't getting any direction from her. She was constantly studying. And eventually they went and complained to the CEO. So the CEO called her in and he said, I've had this feedback from the team. What is going on? And she said, oh, don't worry. I'm just spending these first 3 months learning everything I can about marine engineering so that I can really understand what the team are up against, so I can become a bit of an expert in this field. And he said, that's not why I gave you this role. I promoted you because of your leadership skill. And these people need leadership. They need direction. They don't need a marine engineering expert. I've got those experts. When she realized this and when the penny dropped, she started to lead that team, which was what she was meant to be doing and what she does best. And she topped up her knowledge and expertise by joining a network which was full of people in the marine engineering world. So she was able to listen to speakers, attend masterclasses, tap into the knowledge and expertise of the people she met on that scene, and also to bring some of them into the workplace to help and advise her team. And she ended up leading an unbelievably successful team. So are you spending too much time trying to be an expert in your field and not enough time actually playing to your strengths and doing the work that you were brought in to do? So it would be really good, if this is one of your habits, to just sit down and write down why you're in the role you're in, why you were taken on for this role, or why you've been promoted to a new role. What was the reason behind it? Was it for your leadership skills? Was it for your creativity? Was it for your project management skills? Was it your attention to detail? There'll be so many reasons you're in that role other than your expertise. How much of your time are you actually spending doing the work you're brought in to do? And how much of your time are you spending trying to be just a little bit more of an expert in your field? So take time to think about that one. Messy desk. I'm going to ask you to put your hand up if you've got a messy desk. And I'm just going to escape for a minute. Anybody got a messy desk out there? Okay, I can't quite see the chat box at the moment. I'm sure some of you have. So let me talk to you about messy desk. So working at a messy desk creates a really stressful day, because apparently, according to research, we look at every single pile of papers, post-it note around our desk a minimum of 15 times during the day. Now, that does a number of things to our brain. First of all, it tells us we've got lots of things to do, and it can stress the brain out. Secondly, we can get distracted by a note on our desk and read it and think, right, I must remember to do that, which takes us down a train of thought and out of the train of thought and the work that we're doing in the current moment. And then thirdly, because there's so much stuff on our desk, it can take us ages to find things. So if we are looking for a document, piece of paper that we need for a meeting or a call, then we can spend 5 or 10 minutes trying to find that document. Now, the impression we give to people around us is messy desk, messy mind. It gives the appearance of being really disorganized. And people will think it must take us ages to do things because we're constantly moving things around to look for what we need. And also, it has an impact on the way people work around us. So I tell a story about a blind woman, a true story. A blind woman works in an open plan office. She works with a clear desk policy. Her productivity goes down when the desks around her are cluttered. She can't see that clutter. It just impacts on her energy. So what can you do about it? Clear your desk. It's as simple as that. If it's messy because you've got nowhere to put things, then set up a shelving unit next to your desk, get a filing cabinet or buy some box files and file everything away in a way that you can find it quickly. And then as you finish a piece of work, file it away straight away, because it's much less daunting to file one document than it is to clear a whole desk. If you have had a back-to-back day and the desk has piled up, make sure you clear it before the end of the day so you come in to a fresh start. Psychologically, you will start with a much clearer mind if you've got a clearer desk, and you'll get up to speed in what you're doing much quicker. So always have just what you're working on your desk, obviously with your laptop, your phone, your water, your pens, just the bare essentials. That will make you far more effective. And if you lead a team, start a policy in the office that desks have to be clear when people leave in the evening, and they have to be kept as clutter-free as possible during the day, because that clutter not only impacts on the person at the desk, it impacts on the whole team. Okay, I'm off that treadmill of that messy desk. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine. Okay, how many of you are perfectionists? Put your hands up if you're a perfectionist. Now, perfectionism comes in all sorts of guises. It might be that your desk has to be absolutely symmetrical and absolutely monochrome. Or it might be that you spend a lot of time working from home and everything in the house and the kitchen has to be perfect and clean before you actually sit down. So you wear yourself out before you get to your desk, trying to make everything perfect. Do you know, perfectionism is such a thief of time, and it is the thief of good enough. And very often, good enough is good enough. And if we're trying to make everything 110%, we'll wear ourselves out. And a lot of people get into this state where they are so determined that everything must be 110% that to just press send on an email becomes a huge stressful incident for them. They will read over documents again and again and again, tweaking them and changing them before they'll actually release them. And the impact of that on the people around them is that they become a block, because people around them are waiting for what they're working on so that they can progress with what they're working on. And it stops at your desk because you're wanting everything to be 110%. Now, this is a habit that is quite difficult to break, because if that's the way you're wired, you'll find it quite difficult to break it. So this is when we need to enlist the help of somebody else. So who do you know, who do you work with, who understands what you do, who could cast their eye over your document, your email, when it's almost perfect, and can say to you, that's good enough. And when they do, press send or deliver that document. Don't then go back over it for one last check. Another way to handle this perfectionism is to set yourself blocks of time for each task. Set an alarm on your phone, and when that alarm has gone, just finish the sentence that you're on. That's it. That's the only time you've got for it. If you know you've only got an hour to perfect a document you're working on, you will get it done in that hour. You will learn to get it done because you've set your alarm and you know you've only got that time frame to do it in. And be really strict with yourself. Send that email when that alarm goes. And once you've done this a few times, you'll get far more used to working at pace and to be happy with getting things done in that time frame and then letting them go. Perfectionism will just drag you down. It will overwhelm you. It will mean that you're working long hours, staying late in the office, or taking work home with you. And that ultimately is not sustainable. You'll end up burning out. So next habit I want to address is working in isolation. Now, many people, when they join a new business or they join a new team, they kind of want to get to grips with their role first before they start socializing with the team. And they take a long time to actually start getting to know people and to integrate into the team. So you can start to be seen as being a bit of a loner. Also, if you're trying to get to grips with a new role and you're doing it on your own, it can feel incredibly isolating. And we're all born, wired to be part of a tribe. Now, some of you might absolutely love being on your own, and I know I certainly love my time alone when I've been working with people all week. But none of us were made to be alone and work alone all the time. And if you've got a really buzzy team around you, but you're not part of it, that's going to ultimately impact on your confidence, on your self-esteem, and on your productivity. So really important, right from day one, when you join a new team, when you're promoted or you join a business, make friends with the people around you. Get to know them. Take breaks with them. Go to lunch with them. Arrange to have coffee with them. Go for a drink after work. Get to know them. Ask questions. Listen to them. Understand what they're all about, not just from a work sense, but from a family sense. And enlist their help. As you get to grips with your role, with the job, ask questions. Get their help. Get them on board. What you're doing there is you're building trust and you're showing that you're a team player. Because when it comes to looking for people to promote to the next level, bosses and leaders are going to want people that they can trust and want people that relate well to a team and can collaborate with other people. They're not looking for people that want to work in isolation. So think about how you're perceived at work and what relationships you're developing and how well you work with others. I'm not suggesting for a minute that you spend hours and hours gossiping around the water machine or the coffee machine, but the right level of interaction with people to build that trust and build those friendships. Now, ladies, you're going to shout me down in flames for this one. Would you believe, gentlemen, you're going to love this, would you believe that women utter on average 20,000 words a day? Men, and I'm generalizing here, ladies, men on average utter 7,000 words a day. Now, I know for a lot of you that's not going to come as any surprise. What is the impact of that in the workplace? Well, this is the habit of talking too much. And unfortunately, the bias here, ladies, is weighed on us. We do tend to talk too much. Now, how is this a problem? Well, we distract our colleagues if we're in a team environment because we're constantly just shooting off quick fire comments or asking questions or sharing what's in our mind. And that's interrupting their train of thought. But it really comes to the fore in a meeting. And let me give you an example of this. So say this woman that we're seeing here is sharing an idea. She's obviously collating lots of ideas that have gone up on the board there. But very often when a woman is sharing an idea in a meeting, she'll stand up and she'll say, right, I've got an idea I want to run by you, but let me just give you the backstory. So this idea came to me 2 weeks ago and I was at a conference and there were some really good speakers. And one of them that really stood out for me was a lady called Sally Helgeson. And I was really struck by what she said. And she was talking about sustainability in business. And it's a lot of what we've been talking about. So I decided that I really wanted to catch her and have a one-to-one conversation with her. And I tried that at the break time, but, you know, she was really busy. There was a whole queue of people. So I waited till lunchtime and I networked a bit and I talked to a few people. And then I had to go and hang about until she was free. I was at the back of the queue, but I worked my way forwards. Eventually I got to talk to her. And the people round the table by now are tearing their hair out. All they want you to do is get to the point. Everything that you've said up to that stage, apart from the topic you were talking about, is irrelevant. And meetings are one of the biggest killers of our time. And research has found that leaders on average can spend up to 23 hours a week in meetings. That's 3 days. The last thing they want is somebody who's going to take up their valuable time with padding. So how can you overcome this habit of saying too much? Thing is to plan really, really carefully. What is it you're going to say? So whether it's a one-to-one meeting, an appraisal, or a group meeting, what is your objective for what you want to say? What are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? And then what exactly is it that you want to talk about? And then break it down, preferably into just 3 key points. You don't want 10 points on this. 3 key points are more than enough to stimulate the conversation. And if they want more information, they can always ask you. Then think about those 3 key points that you want to address. But not only that, think about some ideas, solutions for actions that you have, so you can have that input as well. And then when you deliver it, stick to that plan. I suggest that you actually practice your delivery, particularly if it's to a group of people, so you can time how long it takes. You can practice your opening, so it's really exciting. It attracts attention. There's a real hook there. You can practice your 3 key points, so you're getting your message across with real clarity. And you can practice your solutions or ideas that you've thought of before you open it on the floor. All of that should take no longer than 4 or 5 minutes. So practice it, take stuff out you don't need, take out that padding, get it really succinct, and then on the day, deliver it in that way. And the impact of that is you will be seen as somebody who's really prepared well, who's really thought this through, who is very mindful of other people's time, and you will gain so much respect. And you'll be invited to present again because you presented in such a professional way. So really manage the way you present ideas in meetings like that. And then I want to come on to something which probably impacts all of us. And this is imposter syndrome. I imagine that most of you have been aware of this in your own lives and been aware of this in others throughout your lives. And it manifests itself in so many different ways. Basically, imposter syndrome, it's the fear of being found out and being found wanting. In dictionary terms, it says it's a psychological pattern in which one doubts one's accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So even though we've got a great job, we're getting lots of feedback and appreciation, we can still have that fear that one day we're going to be found out. And you know, this isn't just the domain of low-level people. I don't mean low-level, I mean people in lower ranks within an organization or people with fairly basic jobs. This impacts everybody at all levels. I know because I do a lot of work with CEOs and senior leaders, and I've heard them saying, I'm just waiting for the day when people realize I don't know it all. I haven't got all the answers. I'm just like them. So it impacts all of us in different ways, and it holds us back in many ways. Now, I've been reading a paper by Dr. Young, and she actually likens imposter syndrome to different characteristics that we have, or she categorizes it rather than likens. And this is what she came up with. She said, first of all, we get the perfectionist. Now, I've talked about this already, and the perfectionist who wants everything to be so perfect that they won't proceed with anything until it is. And if it's not perfect, then they beat themselves up about it and they think that they're a fraud because everything they're delivering doesn't reach that extremely, extremely high standard, or they're not meeting the deadlines that they expect that they should do. So perfectionists spend a lot of time beating themselves up for not being 110%. The second category she put in there was the Superman or the Superwoman. The I can do it all person. They take everything on board. They say yes to every challenge, and they do it by working all the hours God sends. They're the first person in the office in the morning. They're the last person to leave in the evening, even when everything has been done. They've got to-do lists as long as your arm. They'll work through all their breaks. In fact, they won't take breaks. And if they don't get everything done on that to-do list, then they're beating themselves up and they're telling themselves they're a fraud, they're not good enough. We then have the natural genius. Now, the natural genius is the person who's been really bright at school, and for their whole life, they've been told that they're a genius. And that becomes a handicap because they then find it incredibly difficult to show vulnerability, to show that perhaps they don't know how to do something or they don't have all the answers because they are seen as being this genius. And so it can be a real handicap. So if you're a natural genius, you may be a genius, but we still need help. we still need to learn and grow and learn new things. So it's important to tap in to the natural skills and abilities of the people around us. On a similar vein, the soloist is somebody who likes to work alone and feels that they should have all the answers and feel it's a weakness to have to go and ask questions or to show that they don't have all the answers. So a bit like the natural genius, they'll be really reluctant to work with a coach or a mentor. They feel that they should know what to do next, and they'd much rather spend hours and hours and hours working out the answer on their own than admit that they don't know it, because by admitting they don't know something, they think that's showing too much vulnerability, and again, they'll be seen as a fraud. Similarly, the expert is somebody who says, well, I don't need a mentor, I don't need a coach, I'm an expert in everything. And when they're not an expert, when their expertise is called into question, or when they don't know the answer to something, then that imposter syndrome rears its ugly head, because they've made out they're an expert and now suddenly they don't know something, don't know how to do it. They don't know how to progress something. They don't know how to take something to the next level. And that expert status that they've hidden behind is being threatened. And suddenly they think, I'm an imposter. So where do you sit on those? Which one of those categories do you fall into? And just remember that each and every one of us suffer from the imposter syndrome. And the way to manage that imposter syndrome is to be the best version yourself you can possibly be. To stop demanding such exacting standards from yourself, to realize that good enough is good enough, and to seek help from people around us. And you'll remember, those of you that have been on my Becoming More Significant program, that this is all about being the best version of yourself. And when you're investing in yourself, then a lot of this imposter syndrome just fades away. A lot of the need to be liked fades away. A lot of the habits of doing everything to this really, really high standard all the time will fade away, because you're doing a great job in the value you're adding every day. So this is just a quick reminder of being in flow, that wonderful state of doing what you do best, doing the work that you love, playing to your God-given strengths, instead of being the jack of all trades where you're trying to be good at everything. So I'm hoping those of you that were on the call last week are really identifying where your natural strengths lie and engineering your life so you're spending 70 to 80% of your time playing to those strengths, being in flow, because that's when you solve problems like never before. You come up with ideas that you'd never have come up with otherwise. It's where you add most value to yourself, to the people around you, to your clients, and to the business as a whole. So flow is a magical way to help you overcome some of these habits that are keeping you playing small. Secondly, it's about powering up. It's about being the best version of you mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So if you come into the office and you've already meditated, you've done some exercise, you've had a fresh juice that you've just squeezed that morning, and you've planned out your day well, you are going to feel so powered up for that day ahead. You're going to hit the ground running. I ran a webinar yesterday, and one of the women there said she just started jogging, and starting her day after a jog with all those endorphins, those feel-good hormones running around her body, has made her so much more productive and so much happier and fired up at work. So what are you doing to power yourself up to bring the best version to work? Constantly evolving and growing. You know, a number of the factors that I've spoken about is that need to be an expert, that need to know all, to be in control. So we can do that by continually evolving in a controlled way. So getting that next qualification, learning from webinars like you're doing right now, from YouTube videos, from podcasts, from reading, learning from each other, constantly growing and stretching out of our comfort zone, so that we feel powered up when we're at work. And we know that we've got a lot of the answers that we didn't have a week ago or a month ago. And we're being noticed at work because we're stepping up continually. That will really give us the confidence to let go of some of those habits that have been keeping us small up till now. And it's about learning to share your value, because there's no point in learning and growing if you're not sharing it. So instead of keeping it to yourself and going, well, I'm not going to tell anybody about that because that helps me to stand out. When you share your value, you're seen as a team player, somebody that's supporting other people to grow. And as your confidence rises through being in flow and being powered up and evolving, you'll feel less threatened by people around you also stepping up and being innovative and growing. And then being present. So it's being in the room with the people that you're with. When you're in meetings, it's fully listening to what people are saying without interrupting. When you're in a one-to-one situation, it's giving that gift of undiluted listening. Be fully present in the room. And when you're at work, it's playing full out, whatever you're doing and whoever you're with, and not being distracted by anything that's going on at home or what you're going back to when you leave work. Just being fully in the moment. And that energy and that positivity you bring to work will have a real impact on everybody around you. And again, it will help you to overcome some of those energy zapping habits that I've mentioned. So in summary, replace your old habits with new empowering ones. Remember, they're hardwired in the striatum of your brain, and sheer willpower is a very difficult way to get rid of old habits. The best way to do it is to replace them with new empowering ones. Spend 70 to 80% of your time fully in flow, doing the work you love that comes easily and naturally. It will bolster your confidence, your self-esteem, your creativity, your productivity, and you'll be seen as a major player. Continually evolve and grow and share that learning, and bring the best version of you to the workplace every day. Empower others by empowering yourself and being that significant person. Couple of offers for you as always. I have a very special online program that I'm launching on the 2nd of June. Because this is the launch program, I'm offering at an unbelievably special offer. It's just £297 plus VAT. It's a 6-week program. There will be master classes every week, between an hour and 90 minutes every week. There will be videos for you to tap into. There'll be prompts during the week, and there'll be lots of background material. So it's a really value-packed online program that I can't recommend highly enough. And then the Contribution Compass profile, if you haven't taken it, it's £50, which is a special offer. And I'm offering a debrief session, which is a 1-to-1 hour with me to talk through the information and help you understand how to apply that in your daily life. So altogether, if you have the profile and debrief, you save £150. My final quote for you. If you are always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. That's from the wonderful Maya Angelou. And as you know, I believe that we all only scratch the surface of our true potential, and beyond wherever you are now, there is an infinite well of potential waiting for you to dive into. And the good news is you will never reach the bottom. It is bottomless. Isn't that exciting? You're on this wonderful journey into yourself, and just keep evolving, keep growing, keep stretching, and just enjoy watching yourself step up and shine every day. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm now going to check in the chat box. I'm going to take any questions you might have, and I'm very happy to stay online for the next 10-15 minutes to speak to any of you that I've got anything you'd like to run by me. So I am going to stop sharing my screen right now, and I'm going to look at the chat box. So glasses at the ready. Great discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you, Practical. The truth, Bon, I love it. The truth about meetings and over speaking. No surprises. How do you find the balance between perfectionist and being counterproductive and making excellence a habit? Well, yeah, great question, Piero. And I think this is when you need to enlist other people. As I was saying, if you've got somebody that knows what you do, that somebody that you work with who can run their eye over your work and say to you, that is brilliant, that's perfect as it is, that's going to give you a lot more confidence in letting that thing go. Whereas if you're only working under your own really high standards, you'll find it very, very difficult to let something go unless it's 110%. So it's about bringing somebody on board to give you the go-ahead, somebody who's equally got very high standards, by the way, who you trust. And when they say, let it go, you actually let it go. I'm not saying any of this is easy. However, really important to realize that perfectionism, while it's great to have really high standards, and I thoroughly believe in high standards, perfectionism can be really draining, and it can stop us seeing the bigger picture because we're so involved in the details. It can stop us moving on to other really productive tasks that we need to do. And it can scare people away because we're such perfectionists that they think, don't really want to work with you because I can't meet your exacting standards. So it can actually make other people feel a bit inferior. Okay. Any questions from any of you? Do any of you have any of these habits? Are you willing to admit to any of them? We've got the perfectionism one. Are there any of you who've got other habits that you're willing to admit to, or even any that I haven't highlighted here? Nobody's willing to own up. I'm sure you have. I'm sure there's lots of irritating habits that you have. Irritating to others might be irritating to you. I know certainly the perfectionist one I've had to control because I like to sit down when everything's perfect. So I found myself coming down in the morning and tidying up the room, and of course wanting the kitchen to be tidy and everything put away. And I've had to, I still do a bit of it, but I've had to go, that's good enough, and walk away. I'm not looking at it all day. I'm sitting at my desk, looking out on a beautiful garden. As long as my desk is clean and tidy, then and the area around me is clean and tidy, then I can work really effectively, and the energy of flow is clear around me. Thank you, Ignacio. Sometimes it's difficult for me to take compliments. So I hope you were here at the beginning when I was saying, when we throw back compliments or we say, oh, it was nothing, it's really deflating for the person that's given us that compliment. So if you start to think about compliments as a gift, and you wouldn't give an actual physical gift back to somebody and say, well, I don't want it. You would accept it, whether it was something you liked or not, and you would thank them for it. So if you start categorizing and have a mindset that a compliment is a gift, then you're far more likely to accept it and to say thank you. And try and say thank you without saying anything else apart from you've made my day. Try not to say, oh, it was nothing. Try not to say, oh, well, it was the team, or it wasn't difficult. Just try and say thank you. And the more you do, the more you practice it, like anything, the easier and the more naturally it will flow out of your mouth. But also, as I said earlier, practice giving more compliments and telling people off if they deflect it back to you, because we teach what we need to learn. Anything else, anybody? Okay, well, thank you so much again for joining me. I will be sending a document through to Michelle to circulate to you, where I've summarized some of the top habits that hold people back. And so do read it while it's fresh in your brain, because when we learn something new, what happens in the brain is we fire up new neural pathways. If we then just go away and forget about it, then those new neural pathways just become redundant. Whereas if you immediately read through the document that I'm going to send out to you, and you reinforce the learning, and you actually put down some actions that you're going to take to overcome some of your habits, you're reinforcing those neural pathways. They become stronger. And as you take actions, you're strengthening them yet again. So every time you learn, take action straight away. Go over the material as soon as you possibly can and reinforce those learning platforms. Thank you so much, Ian O'Brien. Thank you. Thank you, Russell. Thank you. Thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. I hope to see some of you on the online program. Have a great day and be really aware of those self-limiting habits. Thank you very much. Have a great day.